Hello, welcome to ARCHLine.XP 2022 Interior Preliminary course. The course consists of 7 lessons and 7 workshops. The aim of the course is to give you a basic knowledge of ARCHLine.XP. What does preliminary level mean? In this course, you will learn the most important tools and working methods of ARCHLine.XP. Then, you will be able to independently create, for example, the design documentation for a single-floor apartment. By this, I mean the floor plan, the 3D model, the wall views, the plot layout, and the photorealistic image. In today's living room interior design course, I will show you a compact tool from ARCHLine.XP. We'll start from a predefined room and use the room maker to modify it. We will work on Berta Fiar's design today. At the end of the video, we will create a visual design like this. Let's start the program. I create a new project. Save it first. I click on the Save Project icon. I suggest that under Documents, ARCHLine.XP Draw folder, create a subfolder for it, for example, the name of the customer. I use the folder 2022. I'm naming the project. Name should be my own living room project. I will show you the floor plan to be drawn. This is the room we are going to make. You can see it's not a rectangle, so it's a bit more complicated. We are going to draw this rectangle first using a predefined room, and then we are going to add the first wall add-on and the second wall add-on. Let's start planning. I use Interior menu, Room Maker, Predefined Rooms. I choose the rectangle shape. I enter parameter A, which is 7160 mm, parameter B is 3900 mm. You can set the wall thickness and the height. I place it on the floor plan near the origin. The floor plan and the 3D model of the room are ready. I can zoom in and out using the mouse scroll wheel. If I press the mouse scroll wheel, I can move the drawing. If I double-click on it quickly, I can see the drawing at the optimal zoom. Let's have another look at the PDF. We will make these 2 wall add-ons. I will choose Building, Wall, Edit, Insert Square Add-on, and enter the values for this, 3000 mm wide and 2240 mm deep. I place it on the corner. If the cursor does not touch the wall, the exclamation mark appears. So now it can't be placed. Thus, I touch the wall with the cursor and click on the corner of it. The first wall add-on is done. I will continue with the second wall add-on. I will choose Wall, Edit, Insert Square Add-on. I also give the dimensions of this one, 1400 mm and 500 mm. You saw on the PDF that this angle is not at the corner, but 1400 mm from the corner of the wall. I will place the wall add-on with its reference point. The reference point is marked by the little green pencil. With the instruction Next Reference, you can switch between the left, the middle, and the right reference point. I will keep the left reference point. Now I enter the distance, 1400 mm. The walls are finished. The next step is to place the slab. First, I set the slab property. In the building, we find Slab menu. The relative height of the wall was 0. I give the base offset from the floor, which is also 0. I want to place the slab under the wall, so I give it thickness with a minus sign, minus 300 mm. The material on the outside of the slab must match the material of the wall, so I choose coffee cream. I don't set the ties. I will set them later in the room maker. The contour of the slab can be defined in sketch mode. for example, for a balcony or by the walls. Here I will create the slab by walls. To do this, I use a selection rectangle to select the entire building. Then I will press Enter to close the selection. The slab is finished. How can I move the 3D view window to the left side? There are several ways to do this. For example, here is the View tab. I click on the view and now it is moved. I can zoom in and out with the mouse scroll wheel in the 3D window too. I can move it by pressing the mouse scroll wheel. Double-clicking on it is the optimal zoom. If I press the right mouse button, I can rotate it. Also notice that when I am in the axisymmetric view, whichever point I press the right button at, the center of the rotation is moved there. It rotates around the point. Let's put the floor plan back on the left. Next step is to prepare the ceiling. I'm going to make a plain ceiling, but first I can set its properties. Its thickness is 20 mm. I set the relative elevation, which should be 2680 mm. This is not a real plain ceiling, it's more like a plaster. 20 mm thick plaster will be on the reinforced concrete slab. I can start making the plain ceiling. I choose the plain auto ceiling. Just click into the room. The program recognizes the contour of the room and the plain ceiling is ready. At this point, let's save the project. Make sure to save every 10-15 minutes. We are in axonometric view. Here we can change the current view to front view, top view, and so on. We want to work inside the room, but we can't see into, so we need to adjust the perspective. The perspective is set with an eye icon in the navigation bar. Here we see the top view. It's worth switching to the floor plan, because then we can see the walls, partition walls and furniture. The perspective is marked by a triangle. If I click on the little red marker, I can move it into the room. If I click on the blue one, I can move the camera. If I click on the purple one, I can move the object. And if I click on the green one, I can change the perspective. Make sure that the angle of the view is between 60 and 70 degrees and not significantly more, because it will distort the perspective. When you set a suitable perspective, click on the green plus to save it. Go on, specify several views of the room, for example clockwise. Another thing to remember when setting the perspective is that the height of the camera and the target should be the same. 1200 mm is recommended, but it should not be higher than 1400 mm. If they are not at the same height, the walls will slope. Only deviate from this rule if you have a good reason to do so, for example, to show off a narrow bathroom from above. I'll close the perspective window. Keep the 3D window active. Below we see the views. If I click on the blue arrow next to it, I can see the perspective in a row. That's why the order was important, so that you are not jumping between perspectives, but looking around the room. I'm switching the views. I can also swap windows by activating the 3D window or the floor plan and then clicking on the magnify view icon. There are several ways to do this. The next step is to use the Room Maker. Clicking on the interior Room Maker command and click inside the room. The Room Maker will appear. The advantage of this compact method is that everyone new to ARCHLine.XP can quickly get to the stage of decorating a room. All you need to do is to use these tools one after the other. There is much more complex method in ARCHLine.XP. This will be explained in the next presentation. So here we are in the Room Maker. Let's look at the floor plan in the PDF. We want to place these two sliding doors on the floor plan first. One is 3000 mm wide and the other one is 3140 mm wide. Okay, now let's go back to the room maker. First, you need to choose the wall on which to place the first door. We always work on the wall directly opposite us. To do this, we use the wall selector. I move 3 steps to the left, and now we are exactly on the wall indicated by the floor plan. I'm going to place the door on this wall. The door tool is the first item where the contents of the favorites are displayed first. If you go back, you can select the other categories. This should be the sliding door, and the door itself should be this one, single-sided sliding door. We need to specify the parameters. The width is 3000 mm, the height is 2400 mm. I do not need to set anything else. Green tick mark to create it, and the program will insert in the middle of the wall. Let's go to the other side. The door is on the opposite wall on the right wall corner. It is the same type of door. Its width is 3140 mm. Other parameters remain the same. Hit the green tick. The program places it in the middle of the wall. You can change its position by entering the distance from the left or from right. If you want to place it on the right corner, you have to enter 0 here. After updating, you will see the result. The next step is to place windows. Look at the plan to see where they should be placed. On this wall there are 2 windows. One is 2000 mm wide, the other is 1200 mm wide. On the other side, there is also a 1200 mm wide window. The distance between the first window and the corner is 800 mm. The 1200 mm window will only fit in if it will be a corner window. First, I'm going to place the single window that only goes up to the corner of the wall. The width will be 1100 mm. Later, we will make sure that these 2 simple windows are connected to form a corner window. I will return to ARCHLine.XP program. With the wall selector, I will move 1 step to the left. This wall is active now. I click on the Windows tool. I select a simple window. The width of the first window is 2000 mm, the height is 2100 mm, and the sail height is 300 mm. I create it with the green tick. The window is placed in the middle of the wall. As we saw in the PDF floor plan, the distance from the left is 800 mm. Now the window is in the right place. The next window will also be placed on this wall. In the room maker, I click on the green plus to add another window to the same wall. Now I can move the second window. Its width is 1100 mm, the other parameters are the same. It fits nicely on the wall. I move to the right wall. Here I will place a 1200 mm wide window. I fit this to the left wall corner. I have finished placing the windows. The next tool is the curtain. I will place curtains on the windows. I will use wall selector to go back to the previous wall. The active window is the one with the red frame around it. I can switch between windows by clicking on it or by clicking on the blue arrows. The first window should be active. You can choose from different types of curtains: simple curtains, vertical blind curtains, Roman blind, Venetian blind. I choose the simple curtain. I give the parameters. The top height is 2650 mm and the bottom height is 20 mm from the floor. This curtain will be a sheer curtain, so I'll take the pleats a little higher. The curtain will completely hide the window, so I move the slider of the retraction all the way to the left. No palmet needed. Lastly, I need to specify the material. I choose this sheer curtain material and place the object with the green tick mark. I move to the other wall and place the same curtain on the window there. Now let's see how I can choose and download the material. In the Material tab, I can click on the blue plus to go to ARCHLine.XP Material Library. Here are materials such as different fabrics, textiles, tapestry, curtains. The Material Library is a limited sample library. There are many more types of material that can be downloaded from the internet. Click on the internet icon. Here the program offers two options. The first is the showroom. The second is the internet browser. You can search on any manufacturer's website here. In the showroom, there are different manufacturers. Now I choose Ravitex and I use this material from the Montreal family. When I click on download, this item is not only downloaded and saved to the material library, but the curtain material will also be changed. The curtain material has been replaced. This method only offers a fraction of possibilities. That is why we have the second method. I click on the internet icon again and now choose Internet Browser. Here we can type the manufacturer's link into the browser. I go to Sanderson's site and choose Fabric menu. I search on IKEA fabric. I can choose from a variety of colors. I right-click on the texture. I have several options. I can save it as a JPEG image. I can edit this image as needed. The other option is to ask for a copy of the image. I can recommend this if there is no need to edit the image. In this case, the image will be copied on the clipboard. I go back to ARCHLine.XP program. To create a new material, I click on the yellow star. The Material Properties window will appear. I will create the new material from texture. I right-click on the color pattern on the left. Paste will insert the material from the clipboard, while the texture option on the right will be turned on. So, the default color is replaced with texture. If the texture is saved as JPEG image, I can browse it out of the computer. We need to set the render style for the material. It is a blackout curtain, so I choose the fabric render style. I will talk more about the render styles in the rendering class. I also need to adjust the physical properties of the fabric. It would be the best if the pattern would be a seamless pattern of which actual size is known. Unfortunately, frequently the pattern is not a seamless pattern, so it needs to be edited. For a neutral pattern like this, I can use stretch command, and the program will simply stretch it onto the curtain piece. This is what I do now. Don't forget to name it. Let's call it Icaria. I save it to Fabric category and enter the name of the manufacturer into subcategory field. This would be Sanderson. The curtain material has been replaced with the new Sanderson material. I will switch to the other wall and choose the Icaria material for the curtains there too. At this point, I'm going to close the room maker. I came back to the floor plan and saved the project. It is recommended to save the project every 10-15 minutes. Now I go back to the room maker and continue decorating the room. I go to the next step, the electrical accessories. I can choose an electrical accessory from the library or from the showroom. I recommend Logus or Schneider Electric accessories. In this example, I will first select a 1-GaN glazed switch. I will place it next to the balcony door. The offset from the floor is 1200 mm. In this case, I group 3 horizontally switches. The switches will be placed in the middle of the wall. If the exact distance is known, it can be entered, or if it's not, I can set it with manual move buttons. I place the sockets under it. Do you remember? On the same wall I put another element with the green plus icon. Now I go back to the Sockets Outlets category and select the 1 gang standard socket with 3 horizontal grouping. I set the base offset to 400 mm and place it with a green tick. I move it a little bit. The next tool is Profiles. I can place the decorative profile in the middle or where the wall meets the ceiling or the parquet profile below. Let's start with the profile on the top first. Choose PX022 from the library. The width and the height are equally 50 mm. In the base offset from the fall field, type the height of the top of the profile. The fall ceiling starts at 2680 mm. So this is the value to enter here. It's worth checking the reference point for this profile. The top reference point should be set here. It will be okay, but usually the middle point of the profiles is the reference point, so it has to be adjusted. For example, if you set the bottom reference point, this decorative profile would slide into the false ceiling and it wouldn't be visible. Click on the green tick button and the profile is ready. We still need to adjust the material, which will be light gray. I can select it from my favorites if it's already there, or I can look for the material in the library by clicking on the blue plus. To search, we have to go back to the main libraries of the materials. Here I type the first few characters of the material name. The program already found it. I'll use this. The next step will be to create the skirting board. Here I choose it and modify the dimensions to 20 mm and 150 mm. I choose the same material. It's done. The next step is the ceiling lamps. I will be placing a ceiling lamp from the library. Here again I go back to the library and find the Delta Light pendant lamp. I click on the green tick and it will place on the ceiling. The lamp is placed in the center of this room. Now I check the PDF floor plan for a moment. Here we can see that the lamp should be above the dining table. Its position is about 1800 mm from the center. If the placement is not exact, I can change it later on the floor plan. I will go back and enter minus 1800 mm because I have to shift it to the left. It is nicely placed above the dining room. Now I'm going to put a spotlight on it. I click on the green plus. We have to go back to the library to search everywhere, not just in the subdirectory. I'll type grid. I will use this lamp and put this in the middle again. We could see earlier on the PDF floor plan that it is also positioned further from the center, so I'm moving it minus 400 mm. The rendering shows that there are 6 of these lamps. It would be unreasonable to place 6 lamps here in the 3D, so I will complete the placement on the floor plan later. Let's see what the next tool is. Lamps on the wall. On the wall behind the sofa I'm going to place wall lamps from the library. I will choose the wall lamp. I give the distance from the left. It is 500 mm. The base offset from the floor is 1500 mm. Let's place it. Now I'll add one more lamp, and here I will give the distance from the right. It is 500 mm. The base offset from the floor is the same as before. Wall lights are ready. Let's move on. The next tool is the picture on the wall. It can be used to place different paintings, photos with or without a frame or matting. Let's take a look at the rendering for a moment. We can see that the map of London has been trimmed here as a poster. That means I have to turn off the frame and the matting. I go back to the library and look for the map. I set the size to 2450 mm. I keep the aspect ratio, so the other value will change proportionally. The base offset from the floor is 150 mm. The map on the wall is ready. It's in the middle too. Let's move on. I'm going to put another picture on the wall add-on. I have to find the wall first. I will look for the picture. The height is 1200 mm. I will add frame to it and keep the size. I give material for the frame. It should be bronze black. I place the picture. It's done. Let's look at the next tool. This is the floor finish. Here I can choose different type of pockets. Now I'm going to the library to find the Car's oak truffle material. I can also set the direction of it. Rotating it by 90 degrees, it will look like this. I go back to the original. Next, I can specify the material of the ceiling and the false ceiling too. I've already set these to white. I move on to the wall finish. This is the wall I've chosen, and I'm going to select its material. From the library, I will pick the same light grey that I used for the pocket profile. Then the wall I had selected would pick up the color. Now I want all walls to be the same color. I select on all walls, then choose light grey. All the walls are colored. Now I'm going to change the color of this wall. I turn off the all walls option and select black-blue color. I'll go to the wall where the map is and paint it to the same color. And we are finished working with the room maker. I close it and save the project. Do you remember? I mentioned that we have to place 6 spotlights in the living room. This is what I'm going to do. I will select the spot lamp on the floor plan. Then choose Edit Duplicate Matrix and enter its reference point. I can either place it graphically or by value. Let's look at the values. We saw in the rendered image that there are 3 lights horizontally and 2 vertically. If I specify by value, I need to know the shift between the lamps. Here, the horizontal shift is 1500 mm, the vertical one is 800 mm. The second row is below the first row. Therefore, minus 800 mm must be entered. After that, I have to adjust the orientation. I will place it horizontal and it will displace the lamps exactly. Let's have a look at the 3D image. If I click on the arrows, we can see the decorated room. I'll go back to the floor plan and continue working on the curtains. On the rendered image, we can see that the curtains are pulled aside all the way to the corner. This is what I will now implement. I will click on the endpoint of the curtain and insert it into the corner by length changing. I will also modify the curtain on the other side. I would like to show you an interesting edit option. I will cover the top of the curtain with the decorative molding. Let's see how I would edit this. I click on the molding. I have to make sure that I click on the top one and not the bottom. The one with the relative height of 2680 mm should be selected. I click on the blue line and offset it by 150 mm. The curtain will fit behind this nicely. What do I do on the other side? The previous one would not be a good solution because it would highlight the molding. In this case, I can insert a new knot here and shift this side by 150 mm. I'm done, so I can hide the curtain behind the molding. In the next step, I will change the color of the windows to black. I will pick a black color from the library. I drag and drop it onto the window, but I don't change it as a tiling, I replace the material. I can replace the material of just this one element or all the elements with this color. To change every instance of this material in the project, I select a surface with this material. I look around with the View Change button. Notice that I've modified the material everywhere, not just for the window, but also for the doors. The next step is to create the corner window. Now I will use a perspective that is not saved yet. To do this, I will use the perspective icon on the floor plan. Now we can see the two separate windows that I'm going to use to create a corner window. In the floor plan, I select one of the windows. Then from the pop-up menu, I select Edit, Join two openings on the wall corner. I click on the other window and the corner window is created. This window had a width of 1200 mm, the other one 1100 mm. We know that a window 1200 mm wide was designed here, and now there is room for it. So I have to change the width of the window. I click on its node and select the Change Size command. I graphically specify that it should reach to the other window. Here we can see the corner window nicely. We have one more thing to do. We can see that the color of the wall here at the window recess is not right. We managed to repaint all the walls in one step, but we have to take care of painting these recesses. Let's bring the 3D window over here. I will paint the missing areas with the same color as the wall. I right-click on the wall, then select Find Material. The material used on the wall is displayed in the Design Center. I drag this material on the white surface using the S-Painting option. I'll switch to another view and paint the white recesses with the same option. The next topic will be furniture. I'll choose the furniture from the library. In the Design Center, I click on the house icon, then on Objects. So here are different library items, for example, accessories or just living room furniture, including sofas. From here, you can drag the selected one into the floor plan. In this case, I will search for a required sofa, the husk. I'll go back to the main library. I'll type its name into the search field. I can drag and drop it onto the floor plan, or if I click on it, its parameters will appear. Here I can see its size and, most importantly, its relative height. The sofa is placed on the floor, so the relative height is 0. I drop it in and place it on the floor plan. We can see it should be the other way around. I can move and rotate the elements using the markers. I rotate it by 180 degrees. Now I want to adjust the distance from the wall to 100 mm. I do this as follows. Now the sofa is selected. You can see it in its color. First of all, the selection must be closed with Escape key. I select the wall. This will be the first selection. Then I press Ctrl and select the sofa. Then a small arrow appears, pointing from the wall towards the sofa. The wall will change color to red, the sofa to blue. This means that the first item selected is the wall. the second element will move relative to this. So I click on the value and rewrite it to 100 mm. You have to pay attention to the order of the selection, because if you do it in different order, you select the sofa first, control and the wall, and if you rewrite the value now, you will move the wall relative to the sofa, which is not what we need. If the selection order was wrong, you can still change the direction by clicking on the arrowhead. Now the arrow is pointing towards the sofa. Let's go back to the design center, and now I'm going to place a table. This will be the Messina table. I'm going to drag and drop it. I'm also going to place this puff and then rotate it by 90 degrees. Now I'm switching to 3D view. I will place the next object in 3D. It will be a candle, which I will place on the table. I drag it and move it over the table. When the purple cursor appears on the surface of the table, I click on it. I will not continue to place furniture, but will load the final status of the project. If you have installed the preliminary workshop installer, you will find the files in the workshop preliminary reception room folder. Now I will show you how I can highlight a view to see at its largest size. A clean screen button is shown here at the bottom of the status bar. If I click on the Maximize View, I can expose this window to the whole screen. What I would like to talk about here is the Navi Bar, which is located at the bottom right. We've already talked about these. I can set up different views here. So far, I've been using consistent color view. The characteristic of this view is that the color, light gray in this case, looks the same on every wall. It has no shading, no depth, no spatial effect. If I switch to realistic option, I get a shaded image. Let's look at this flower pot, which also shows reflections. I want to look around in this model, so I'm going to set another perspective. I'm going to try to put the camera about in the middle here. I save it as a center view. I'm standing in the middle. At this point, if I select View menu, Animation, Walk and Fly, Look Around, I can look around the model. Meanwhile, I can release the mouse button. By pressing Escape, I can stop looking around. I'm going back to Living Room 1 view. To create the rendered image, I need to set the north direction and the sun position. I need to see how the shadows will work. First, I go to View menu, Sun, and select north direction and set it. Then I go to the sun position. I select Budapest and March 15, 10 past 10. I turn on the shade on the Navi Bar. Let me show you that I can set time here using the shadow simulation. I choose a morning time. If I go below the borderline, there is no sunlight. Here we can set the right sun position. Another spectacular option is shadow animation, which can be used to make an animation. For example, from 8 a.m. to noon, I set animation step to every 1 minute. This can be also saved as an AVI file. When I'm done with that, it's worth turning off the shade because it's very computer intensive. The last step is to create the rendered image. You don't need the shadow to be on for this. I'm going to click on the render icon. I'm going to create a standalone rendering, a smaller one, say 800 by 600, and to get it done quickly, I'm going to use the real-time draft. I can do it with daylight only, artificial light only, or both. After I have enough sunlight to illuminate this place, I will turn off the lights. Here I make sure that the background lighting value is lower indoors and higher outdoors. I also select a background image. This is what I will see in the render behind the window. I will start the rendering. The rendering time depends on the processor performance, the available memory, the model size, amount of lights, the quality of the render, and the resolution of the image. This will be covered in the rendering workshop. The rendered image is done. You can see the lights are off, the background is visible through the window, and the sun is shining in. It's the lowest quality image, but the fastest render. For customers, it's worth choosing a much higher quality render type. You can save the image here.